Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the modern world has started to slow down. Electric vehicles become harder to manufacture. Wind turbines stop appearing on the horizon. Advanced fighter jets face production delays. Smartphones become more expensive. And the artificial intelligence revolution suddenly hits an unexpected obstacle. Not because of a financial crisis, not because of a cyber attack, not because of a war, but because a handful of obscure minerals stopped flowing through the global economy. Most people have never heard their names. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium. They sound more like chemistry exam questions than strategic resources. Yet, these materials sit inside some of the most important technologies on Earth. And today, a quiet battle is unfolding over who controls them. Because the next great struggle for global power may not be fought over oil. It may be fought over rare metals. But history has a habit of changing the rules. The technologies defining the 21st century are different from those that defined the 20th. Electric vehicles are replacing combustion engines. Artificial intelligence is becoming a strategic priority. Military systems are becoming increasingly dependent on advanced electronics. And all of these industries rely on materials most people have never even heard of. The modern world runs on invisible layers. But that's where the story begins. Rare earth metals are not actually rare in the way most people imagine, and that makes the story even strange. Many countries possess deposits. The United States has them. Australia has them. Canada has them. Even parts of Europe have access to these resources. So if many countries have rare earth metals, why is there suddenly concern about who controls them? The answer lies in a distinction that most people never notice. Finding resources and controlling resources are not the same thing. Because mining is only the first step. The real power comes later. Imagine discovering oil beneath your land. That sounds valuable. But crude oil alone does not power cars. It must be refined, processed, integrated into larger systems. The same principle applies to rare earths. Extracting the material is only the beginning. Transforming it into something useful is where power emerges. And for decades, while much of the world focused elsewhere, one country quietly understood this better than anyone else. China. When many Western countries reduced investment in mining and processing, China moved in the opposite direction. It invested heavily in mining, refining, and supply chains for decades. Not because rare earth metals were making headlines, precisely because they were not. Today, China dominates large parts of the global rare earth processing industry. Not necessarily because it owns every deposit, but because it controls a critical stage of the supply chain. And that distinction changes everything, because control rarely comes from ownership alone. It comes from dependency. The warning sign arrived years ago. In 2010, during a territorial dispute between China and Japan, rare earth exports suddenly became part of a geopolitical confrontation. For governments around the world, the message was impossible to ignore. A resource most people had never heard of had become a strategic lever. And for the first time, many countries began asking a troubling question. What happens when a critical part of the global economy depends on a supply chain controlled elsewhere? Dependency is harmless until it isn't. This pattern appears again and again throughout history. The most powerful institutions are often not the ones with the most visible assets. They are the ones sitting in the middle of essential systems. Visa doesn't produce money, yet billions of transactions flow through its network. Cloudflare doesn't create the internet, yet enormous parts of the internet depend on its infrastructure. The Vatican did not become influential because it owned assets. It accumulated assets because people trusted its authority. Again and again, power emerges from the same place: dependency. And rare earth metals reveal this principle at a global scale. The timing could not be more important, because the world is entering a new technological era. Everyone talks about artificial intelligence. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, NVIDIA. The conversation often sounds entirely digital, as if AI exists purely in software. But every digital revolution ultimately depends on physical infrastructure. Data centers, power grids, semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, and many of these systems require critical minerals. Consider the contradiction. Artificial intelligence feels like the most digital technology ever created. But behind every AI breakthrough sit enormous data centers filled with physical hardware. The AI race may be fought in software, but it begins in the physical world. Even the most advanced technologies eventually collide with the physical world. A chatbot may seem weightless, but the servers running it are not, and the materials inside those systems must come from somewhere. That realization has triggered concern among governments around the world. The United States has launched initiatives to strengthen domestic supply chains. Europe is investing in critical minerals. Australia is expanding mining projects. Canada is increasing strategic development. Japan has spent years reducing dependence on foreign suppliers. The goal is simple: reduce vulnerability. But there is a difficult question hiding beneath these efforts. Can infrastructure advantages built over decades be replicated quickly? History suggests the answer is rarely simple. Building a mine takes years. Building processing facilities takes years. Training expertise takes years. Creating entire supply chains can take decades, which means the competition unfolding today is not simply about minerals. It is about time. Countries are racing to secure resources that future technologies may depend on, and whoever succeeds could gain enormous leverage. This is why the story of rare earth metals matters, not because they are rare, not because they are exciting, and not because most people will ever see them. They matter because they reveal how power actually works. Throughout history, wealth and influence have often flowed through hidden systems. The pattern never really changes. Only the resource changes. Farmland, coal, oil, semiconductors, rare earth metals. Different eras, same principle. The people who control critical layers of infrastructure often shape the future. China understood this lesson long before rare earths became a headline. It wasn't simply building mines, it was building leverage. And in an increasingly technological world, that kind of leverage may prove more valuable than the technology itself. And that may be the most important lesson in this entire story. Most people think power comes from the products they can see. History suggests something different. Power often belongs to the invisible systems underneath them. The networks, the infrastructure, the supply chains, the resources. And that may be the defining lesson of the 21st century. The most powerful countries are not always the ones that build the future. Sometimes they are the ones that control what the future is built from. If you enjoy documentaries that uncover the hidden systems behind power, money, and influence, subscribe to Nexplainr. And here is the question: will the next global superpower be the country with the best technology, or the country that controls the materials that technology depends on?